Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving straight into a massive topic, India's strategic geopolitical borders. We're going to be unpacking that incredibly delicate, really high-stakes balance between regional cooperation on one hand and national defense on the other.
Here's our roadmap for today. We'll start by looking at India's macro-strategic position. Then we'll sweep clockwise across its complex western and northern frontiers, check in on those trusted Himalayan neighbors, head over to the eastern gateways, dive into the maritime domain, and finally we'll unpack the neighborhood first policy that kind of ties the whole shebang together. Let's get right into it.
All right, Part 1, India's strategic position.
7. India is actually the 7th largest country in the world by area. I mean, just think about that for a second. It basically spans its own entire subcontinent. That sheer geographic scale inherently makes it a massive center of gravity for regional security, foreign policy, and global trade. When a nation physically takes up that much space on the map, geography pretty much dictates that it's going to play a vital role on the world stage.
Now, because of that vast landmass, India has to actively juggle relationships with 8 distinct neighbors. We're talking about 6 really complex terrestrial boundaries: Pakistan, China, Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh, and Myanmar, plus 2 critical maritime frontiers with Sri Lanka and the Maldives. It is literally a 360-degree diplomatic undertaking every single day.
Moving on to Part 2, the complex frontiers to the west and north.
We're starting at the absolute most demanding boundaries here, and the contrast in security realities is wild. If you look west to Pakistan, the whole dynamic is about managing these really long-standing territorial disputes, like Kashmir, and dealing with cross-border terrorism, all while still trying to somehow pursue regional stability. But then you look north to China, and it's a completely different puzzle. You've got this massive economic trade happening on one hand, but on the other, there's severe high-altitude friction along the line of actual control that's still unresolved. So we're looking at 2 totally different, incredibly complex geopolitical relationships.
So, what's the game plan? Well, the strict objective for both of these demanding relationships is a constant, deliberate balancing act. It's all about managing those geopolitical differences through open dialogue, absolutely, but doing it without ever compromising national security. It is a daily, incredibly high-stakes equilibrium between diplomacy and defense.
Section 3. Trusted Himalayan Neighbors.
Now, as we move further along that northern map, the vibe completely transforms. Take Nepal. They share incredibly deep historical, cultural, and religious ties with India. But the real standout feature here is the open border. Honestly, it is so rare globally to see a border where citizens can just seamlessly travel back and forth for tourism or daily work without a passport. That requires an immense amount of mutual trust, and it is a stark contrast to those heavily fortified zones we see elsewhere.
And right next door, you've got Bhutan, arguably one of India's most trusted partners for sure. Their cooperation acts like a vital bridge that spans across multiple sectors. You've got strict security coordination, mutual economic development, education, and crucially, harnessing sustainable hydropower. It's basically a textbook example of a win-win bilateral relationship that's been built on decades of mutual reliance.
Part 4, Eastern Gateways and Connectivity.
Pivoting eastward, Bangladesh serves as an absolutely essential partner. And here's a crazy fact for you. This is actually India's longest land border. Yep, longer than its borders with China or Pakistan. It's a highly active frontier, and it's been heavily strengthened lately by improved physical transport links, robust trade, solid economic partnerships, and shared security cooperation. So it's not just lines on a map, it's tangible, physical, regional connectivity.
Next up, we have Myanmar, which serves as India's direct physical gateway into Southeast Asia. Because of that prime strategic location, Myanmar plays the absolute starring role in India's Act East policy. That makes it fundamentally critical, not just for border security, but for broader regional economic connectivity as well. Okay, so having successfully navigated all 6 terrestrial borders, we have to pause and ask a pretty critical question. What about the sea? I mean, India has an immense coastal geography, and its strategic reach definitely doesn't stop where the land meets the ocean. Which brings us to Part 5, Strategic Maritime Neighbors. Looking directly south, right across the Palk Strait, we find Sri Lanka. While India obviously shares deep historical ties here, the modern maritime relationship is heavily resource-driven. It's all about facilitating crucial cooperation in fisheries, general sea trade, and, vitally, coordinated disaster management in what can be a pretty volatile oceanic region. Then, a bit further out in the Indian Ocean, lies the Maldives. Now, considering this island nation's territory is roughly 99% water, its strategic importance is entirely about its geography. It sits directly along massive, global maritime trade choke points. Because of that, close coordination in maritime security and disaster relief with India is an absolute necessity for keeping the region stable. Finally, Part 6, the Neighborhood First Policy.
So we've just mapped out 8 incredibly diverse borders. How on earth does India tie all these different geopolitical realities together? Well, the strategic synthesis of all this is the Neighborhood First Policy. This is the foundational diplomatic doctrine explicitly designed to foster mutual economic growth, enhance regional connectivity, and promote wide-scale regional cooperation. It's basically the big umbrella under which all these individual relationships are managed.
But, and this is important, this doctrine relies on a very deliberate, high-stakes balancing act. The guiding principle here is to constantly promote peaceful, friendly relations with everyone, while simultaneously and fiercely protecting sovereign national interests. It's robust diplomacy, but it's completely backed by the firm resolve of national security. For those of you who are students of geopolitics, or maybe aspiring officers preparing for military boards like the SSB, you have to understand how to master this equilibrium. You've got to appreciate the deep need for peace and economic cooperation while never ever losing sight of the absolute necessity for a strong national defense.
As we wrap up this explainer on India's strategic geography, I want to leave you with a final provocative thought to really chew on. Looking at everything we've covered today, how will you balance regional cooperation and strong national defense in your approach to tomorrow's geopolitics? It's a question that literally defines modern international relations. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I really hope this breakdown has given you a powerful new perspective on the map of Asia.